and when we realize that, what, energy is not, energy controls us. We don't control energy. But
Absolutely.
there's more than enough energy out there for us to consume. I think, what is happening right now. Let's get into a little bit of, what Team 17 talks about in terms of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer that the pain that is about to be inflicted on the people of the United States is not exclusively limited to the evil people. It's going to be the regular people too. And in truth, the regular people need to feel the pain so that they will know, what does it say? How do you know what the light is until you can't really know what light is until you've been in the dark. And we are going to have some really, really dark times.
You're not going to get an argument out of you, me, Ron. Well, good afternoon, folks. It's exactly 17 minutes after 1 p.m. here in Costa Rica, and we got Ron Partain. Ron Partain happens to come to me via Nino Rodriguez, which we just did a podcast with, I believe, a couple of days ago. And him and I just had a conversation yesterday on the phone. That should have been the podcast, but it didn't turn out to be that way. But we're going to try to recap that conversation because it was epic. Nino said, you need to meet Ron. I think you and Ron are going to get along just right because he sings the same song. Perfect. Before we get going, guys, hit the pause button. Okay. Hit the pause button, go to Rumble and subscribe. Okay. This video is going to go on our secondary YouTube channel because our first YouTube channel happens to be in jail right now. Okay. Also subscribe, unsubscribe, like, unlike, keep doing that to keep the algorithms dazed and confused. Don't forget to go to QFS1776.com. There's 3 websites total in there. That's my website and 2 other websites, which is the holy grail of what's coming. The quantum financial system, Jasara Nasara, XRP, XLM, XDC, everything quantum is in there, including medbeds. All right. Make sure you read about Jasara Nasara. It's very real. We have documentation that's already started in Russia. It's already started in the United States. The United States will probably be the last shoe to drop as far as that's concerned. Also, don't forget to share us in your social media. Very, very important. And also, don't forget to, go to our merchandise store. We got some killer, very unique merchandise that no one else has when it comes to XRP and all the stuff that we're going to. That is QFS1776.shop. Okay. Make sure you go there, check out some of the stuff. The stuff is really off the charts. And we got some new merch coming that is going to blow your mind. A big thanks to Mirko, il capo di tutti capi, the boss of bosses inside our Telegram group. He's doing a great job recruiting some hardcore administrators. If you want to be an administrator inside our room, please contact Mirko. He's always there. If you listen, we're all on these gadgets anyway, all day, every day. We just want you to redirect that energy and help us as we go through the biggest transition of wealth. Okay. Join us because we're going to make history, folks. This is big, big time stuff. Ron, welcome to our podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out. You come highly recommended. And when I talked to you, I said, I happen to know that voice. So the curiosity in me went directly to YouTube. I punched in your name, and sure enough, lo and behold, comes up a video that you and Nino Rodriguez did about a year ago, right? And now when I was watching that video, I was like, holy shit, I saw this video. And I want you to explain a little bit about that because I like to keep it entertaining. Yes, XRP is real. Yes, Jasara Nasara is real. But we have to keep it entertaining because there's a lot of moving parts here. And, with the C19 stuff that just happened, and he was in Vegas, and they were sitting down having a couple of drinks. Man, oh man! I want you to tell that story, and then I'll join you in on it. All right.
Yeah. So that was where I met Nino. That was like, I think that was like a Wano Savan style event. There were several different things that were going on that weekend. At the time, I was working very closely with Scott McKay. I was kind of his right hand guy, and Scott was invited to come to this event in Vegas where they were doing it was like a cocktail party on a Friday night where we all went and hung out and met everybody. Saturday was kind of like an intel day, and then Saturday night was a That was when they did the showing of the movie Sound of Freedom, the Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard movie. So we got done with the movie, and we all went out into this casino and into a restaurant area, lounge area of the casino. And these security guards were coming out, and they were just hammering us. Or like we weren't wearing our masks. And
You mean the face diaper?
The face diaper. Sorry, yeah,
No
we weren't wearing our face diaper. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to wear that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to wear it. This guy was, I don't know if he looked like he was Asian of some sort. I don't know, but he came up and he was just on me. I want to say he was Filipino. I was in the Navy. All right. So I know the Filipinos when I see him. And this guy was, he had that. The Filipino guys in the Navy always had a little like a chip on their shoulder because they couldn't do the good, and I mean no disrespect to Filipinos. I know a lot of great Filipino guys. I'm not saying that. But this guy just had that chip on his shoulder, like the short man syndrome combined with that Filipino. He was just, and he was a security guard. So he's like, you got three things. He's short. He just has this thing going against him. And he was just on me like stink on
shit,
brown shit. Yeah, exactly. And I kind of had this, I typically I'm a bend, not break guy, but I had a snapping moment, and I went up to him, and he's got the American flag patch on his security thing, and I went up to him and I pointed that thing and I said, "You don't deserve to wear that flag." Oh man, you would have thought all hell broke loose.
I can imagine.
He came unglued. I mean, it was already a tense situation, and he came unglued. So several of us were there. Prime Minister, I don't know if you know who Prime Minister is. Prime Minister was there along with Nino, and they took me and they were like, dude, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. So I felt like Nino was going to have to come out of retirement.
Oh, I would have definitely. Now let me explain the story you told me yesterday, and correct me if I'm wrong. You guys were sitting down having drinks, and they wanted you to put the face diaper on in between sips of your drink.
Yeah,
am I correct?
Exactly. Yeah, we were sitting down in the lounge area. We weren't in the casino.
You could bet the shit underneath your shoes.
Yeah.
And the dirt underneath your shoes that I would have bought Nino out of retirement, and I'm not a pushover. You feeling me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, there would have been some. Let's just put it this way: dentists would really like us because we're going to knock out some teeth. Okay.
Prime and Nino were pushing me out of the casino to the door, and this guy literally followed us and came outside. He actually came into the vestibule area because when you go to the casino, there's an inner door and an outer door, right? So there's always, because of all the air conditioning, there's a little vestibule area. He came into the vestibule area, didn't come out of the outer door, but went out of the inner door into the vestibule and was like still yelling and screaming at me, So
crazy. Are these like rent-a-cops or cop wannabes or cops that are off duty?
No, these are rent-a-cops.
Rent-a-cops.
These are rent-a-cops. Yeah.
It's amazing. And these guys, do they have a gun at their side?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't remember. They may have, but I don't think they did, but they could have. I can't recall.
I could tell you that was a rare case for a Filipino because I'm married to one, but mine is a Filipina, not a Filipino.
Right. Well, I was in the Navy, and because the Philippines, the United States obtained the Philippines after the Spanish American War of 1898. That's how we got Guantanamo Bay in the Philippines. And once when the Philippines became a U.S. territory, guys in the Philippines could actually enlist in the military. Because we had military bases there. They could enlist in the military, but they couldn't because they weren't American citizens. They could go in, but they couldn't do anything that would have been like strategic. they could do stuff like yeoman, administrative work or supply chain or stuff like that, but they couldn't do anything that would have been considered, something that would have been strategic or tactical, from a combative sense. And in the Navy, we call it line. You're either a line or supply. So like a line guys are like the medical guys or the attorneys or what have you. So that these guys, they couldn't do anything that would have been involved in combat operations. So that would have required like a security clearance. But as a result, as a reward for being in the service, I believe what they could do is they could actually get American citizenship. But they had to do that first. They had to serve first. But a lot of these guys, what they did is they made the Navy a career because it was a whole lot better than what they were, the life they would get if they were in the PI. And I've been to the PI. There's the Filipino people are amazing people. I have a lot of respect. In fact, the gal who cuts my hair even today, little Filipina, and just the sweetest, awesome, most awesome heart. What I have found in my worldly travels, because I was in the Navy for 3 years, and I went all over I literally went around the world, which was awesome. And I've traveled a few places, and the one thing that I have discovered about people around the world is people are generally good people. Most of the people are good people. The governments are the ones that are corrupt.
Gotcha. So, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So I before the C-19 debacle situation, correct? Yes. With the Kung Flu, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like that. I haven't heard that one. That's a new one.
Yeah. So the reality is that I was in the Philippines for almost 3 months with my wife. The most hospitable people. Yeah. Most of them don't have a lot, but they want to give you everything. They are amazing folks. Yes. And I went and met my in-laws for the first time. We spent quite a bit of time traveling the countryside, doing a lot of excursions and stuff. And I met a lot of security people who were not like this guy here. This guy sounds to me like, he's maybe a little bit defective from the factory, or maybe he had a little chip on his shoulder. Typically, when they're a little short, they have a little bit of a complex. You know what I mean?
That is true. And I think, if I went back and saw him today, we'd probably get along great. But the tensions were high at that moment because, I did have a little bit of sympathy. I do have a little bit of sympathy for the guys that had to enforce that, because I know that they had to resist, or they had to contend with guys like me, because I'm pretty stubborn. Yeah, me too. I'm rebellious. I'm not going to do something just because somebody says I need to do it. I'm like, yeah, you're going to need to give me a better reason than just that. It's orders, Yeah. So I just won't do that. But generally, I'm a rather agreeable individual when it comes to dealing with other people, because I know they're probably a good person caught in a shitty job.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I don't want to take my anger and frustration out on them. But he was like so over the top, trying to force us to do this. And I mean, the way that the kind of like the Gestapo type tactics, where the brown shirts, where they were hovered around us and trying to plot, and they would have, what it felt like, they would have thrown us down on the ground and kicked us if they could have.
Yeah.
So whatever. I'm quite certain that my behavior that night probably wasn't the most admirable, but whatever. I have a great story to tell. I have a great story to tell.
Yeah. Growing up, I was a brawler. I've calmed down significantly, and I always look for an escape plan. I always, unless you back me into a corner and you give me no way out, and you leave me only one choice, that I got to fight you. Now I'm pissed off because not only are you pissing me off, but you also don't give me a corner for me to get out and walk away from the situation. Right. I'd rather diffuse the situation. You know what I mean? But when I was young, I'll tell a story that I haven't told in a long time in one of my videos. I've told it many, many months ago. His name is Kevin Daphne. Kevin Daphne is a guy that was from Saddlebrook, New Jersey. and he was from my town. We went to high school together, and he had a reputation for having beer muscles. Every time he get drunk, he would start a fight with somebody. And where was he? Out of all places, it was me, my friend Sal La Rosa, and my brother, and we're down in Seaside Heights where they filmed Jersey Shore. Okay. And and this guy is on the boardwalk, Kevin Daphne, and he's drunk as you know what. And he picked a fight with my friend Sal La Rosa. And Sal, we were able to escape that situation. Next thing you know, he's coming down the boardwalk with his entire entourage, and he picks a fight with me. Wrong move. He doesn't give me a way out. Next thing you know, he's bleeding profusely from his eye. And he's yelling, my eye, where's my eye? This is a true story. I thought the guy lost his eye. Long story short, I put the guy into a coma for 2 weeks.
Holy crap.
True story. And I know the cops are coming, so I'm running down the boardwalk with my brother and Sal. And next thing you know, I got this little guy, real wide shoulders, but short guy, and I was cocked like this, ready to just knock him out, right? And next thing I know, I got like 7'2" police officers arresting me. And my mom is like, little 5'0" Sicilian lady, but tough as shit,
Mm-hmm.
She says, no worries. She goes, listen, I'd rather pay $900 and you kicked his ass than the other way around. You did good. Right? That's my mom, right? So anyway, that was the end of that story. True story, right? I mean, but the weirdest shit happens all the time, and you can't help the situation. But when you snap at her, like you said, you were in a situation and maybe you weren't in your right mind at the time, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, you challenge someone's manhood, someone's going to respond, correct?
Well, I think we both responded. We both probably could have handled it better. Yeah, but whatever. At the end of the day,
yeah.
When people challenge me on something like a face diaper, to me, they're challenging my liberty.
Right. Exactly.
And they're pushing my liberty into a corner for some BS narrative that I don't care if they're buying into it, but right, wrong, or indifferent, they're enforcing a narrative against me that I'm not going to abide by.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna comply. I'm just not gonna comply. And if we're gonna go down that road, then ultimately it's gonna, it's moves and counter moves. If I can use a popular phrase, moves and counter moves, right? Well, I'm sorry, but I will not comply.
When this whole thing, this New World order, as I like to call it, rolled into town, I have options here in Costa Rica. We live inside a gated community. And the reality is I can have my butcher deliver me my food. He can put, I'm not going to go into the store. I walked into Solis is the name of the butcher. I walked in and said, look, from time to time, I'm going to come in, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to come in without the face diaper. Do you have a problem with that? He said, no, Mel, don't worry about it. Okay. Because he's a mom and pop. He's a little removed, whatever. So I go in, get my meat, whatever. But if I had the option, I can always call Lagarde. There's this, it's not Christine Lagarde. It's an actual vegetable place called.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, people
or Legrand or something like that. Anyway, so they would actually deliver all my food. So there's options to get around the situation. Because look, whether I go there with my car, I still got to use gas. It's still going to use probably just as much gas as they're going to charge me for the delivery. So either way, it doesn't matter. Right. So, but my wife would go in. She would wear her thing underneath her nose. I said, make sure you breathe through your nose. You don't want to breathe in your own air. But, it's been a major, major inconvenience for everybody. Major.
It has. It absolutely has. Well, of course it has.
Yeah.
And for what? I'm sorry, but I don't believe that what's going on has anything to do with health or safety. It has everything to do with training people to be submissive. That's it. Mm-hmm. The most powerful emotion that is utilized, I hate using the term they, but we'll call it the powers that be. The most powerful tool used against the populace is fear. When
Right.
people are fearful, they will give up liberty and freedom. They will give up rights, things that are codified in law that they don't have to abide by. They will give those up willingly because they want this feeling of security. They don't understand. I get into a lot of debates about Second Amendment stuff because I'm a big 2A guy, and I get into a lot of debates with people who say, oh well, we have to have, we need sensible gun control. No,
Yeah.
we
No.
don't need
No.
sensible gun control. What we need
No.
is we need to have and I'm not a big fan of Abraham Lincoln, but I will say that what we need is we need a new birth of freedom. That's what we really need. And I see a lot of, I'm trying to phrase this very delicately because I want to make sure this is YouTube friendly. But I see a lot of things that are occurring in the world right now, and I tend to believe that. Let me give you an example. I've heard the argument that AOC and the Squad are white hats. I've heard that argument.
I heard that from you the first time yesterday.
Yeah, I've heard that argument. Now, I've heard that multiple places, and I don't know if it's just people postulating it or if it's people who actually truly believe it. I don't know, but this is what I tend to think. I tend to think that when I look at what AOC and the Squad have done, them being in a position of Congress and the position of having a position of authority in Congress, having that platform, has really pushed the Democrat establishment. What they've done is they've hit the accelerator on pushing the democratic socialist agenda, right? Okay. Well, democratic socialism is just a euphemism for communism. They just call it democratic socialism because it makes it sound like it's democratic, which is a load of crap, right? So they have been, she and Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar have been very successful at pushing the narrative left, far left, fast, and by doing so, I think I used the analogy yesterday of what they're doing is it's like the people, they're driving the bus, right? And the people on the bus know the bridge is out. And these guys they're driving the bus and they're hitting the accelerator, and the people are back in the bus are like, whoa, wait a second. The bridge is out. Why are you going faster? And so, using that analogy, pushing the narrative and pushing the politics really left really fast, what they're doing is they're causing a lot of people who are on the left to be kind of like what Reagan said. What did Reagan say? Reagan said, oh, well, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. Right. And I tend to agree with that. And you look at a lot of the people out there who are, former leftists and whatnot that woke up. They were in the same situation where it wasn't that the party left them. They still espoused a lot of the ideologies that they had, like Brandon, is it Straka? I can't remember if it's Straka or Strzok or whatever, but he's the guy from he did the walkaway movement. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, he still espouses the very thoughts that he had that when he was on the left, but what he did was instead of he just realized that the left was only on board. He was only a welcome in the left if he fit into the box of what they wanted him to feel or to be in. When he got outside of that box and wanted to have more of a liberty agenda, people would attack him. If anytime that he said anything that was contrary to the narrative, then they sucked all their dogs on him. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm talking about from the narrative perspective. So, getting back to what I'm saying, I tend to believe that the Squad, while they believe everything that they're saying, I think they were essentially enabled and put there by a white hats to push the narrative faster so that it would wake people up. Because what better way to give people what they want? I think our favorite friend on the board said, you cannot tell the people, you have to show the people. So taking that into consideration, you're showing these people what they're going to get if what they have is going to come to fruition. Now, take that and marry that with Juan Osavin. I'm a big believer that of all the people out there who are talking about things that are transpiring in the geopolitical arena, I think Juan actually has the most sound, grounded philosophy when he talks about the country's we're going to have to experience a near-death experience, right? We're going to have a Cuban Missile style moment, and then we're going to have a near-death experience. And I believe that's going to happen. It's going to get really ugly. It's going to be really bad. Mm-hmm. How it meant, what the manifestations are, I do not know. Are we going to have are we going to have a martial law situation? I certainly believe we're going to have food shortages. I certainly believe we're going to have, a liquidity crisis. So we're certainly going to have banks crashing. We're certainly going to have debt bubbles bursting. That's already starting to occur now. We're going to have a financial system that breaks down, a job situation that breaks down. People aren't going to be able to afford stuff. A housing situation that's going to break down. People aren't going to be able to afford their homes. They're going to lose their homes. They're not going to have any food. What is that going to look like? Exactly. It is going to be really bad on a huge level.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to scare people, but if you are looking at the 80,000 foot view at everything that's going on right now, that is the best case scenario, right?
Right.
You don't want the alternative scenario, which is the nuclear war. You saw what was it, the New York Times or what New York City did this past week when they had the woman come out and say, well, in the event of a nuclear attack, just get inside and stay inside. It's like, what?
That's ridiculous.
What are you talking about?
Exactly.
So where did that come from? I saw
the video like 3 times.
Yeah, the situation that I'm talking about, where people are losing their houses and losing their jobs and their pensions and stuff. That is a far superior position to be in than if we're stuck in a nuclear war. You know what I'm saying?
If people don't understand that these things are being produced to stress them out. Mm-hmm. Because when you get stressed out at the maximum level, your body starts to produce different chemicals in your body that you will get sick and you will end up in the hospital. And they got orders to, what? Okay. So the fact, let's get back to what you were saying about AOC plus 4. Okay. AOC plus 4 being white hats wouldn't shock me in the least.
No. I'm not saying that AOC is white hat. I'm saying that AOC was put into a position by white hats to push the narrative.
That we can expose the left.
Right.
Okay.
She believes everything that she's saying. I don't believe that she's acting. I believe she's actually believes everything that she's saying.
So she was put in place as a strategic chess, a little pawn in a chess match.
Right. By people who were white hats to ensure that she got into that position to where she would have the bully pulpit, so to speak.
Well, she's semi-pretty. I won't say she's a knockout.
I actually, you know what? I find her very attractive. I don't necessarily agree with her politics, but I find her a very attractive woman.
She's somewhat, it's depending on which day of the week, she may or may not sound intelligent. She's sometimes ditzy and funny because she's ditzy, or by default, she sounds funny or weird. Mm-hmm. So she's got a lot of things going for her that draw a lot of attention to her for sure. But I will tell you one, I was told that Jim Acosta from CNN is actually working with Trump as a white hat to expose CNN.
I have not. I think you mentioned that yesterday as well, and I hadn't heard that. But I've heard that. Hey, there's going to be a lot of people out there who you think are good or bad, and there's going to be a lot of people out there who you think that are bad or good. Yeah. When the one thing that I don't know, Mel, is I don't know when the shoe's going to drop. I agree.
Nobody knows.
I agree with you from the standpoint that we're going to be. I don't agree that we're going to be absolutely last, but I believe that we're going to be one of the last because it was already told to us that the last is being saved for one group of people and that have a little 6-point star on their flag.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you a question. You got a food shortage in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You have a situation with gas. We have the situation with gas here too, but we don't have a food shortage here because we don't have to turn Costa Rica into communist in order to drop the entire world into communism. We have to drop the biggest domino, the United States of America.
Right.
You understand? So this is intentionally by design. You know, the bad guys want to bring in the global reset. We want to bring in quantum financial system that is XRP driven. XRP is going to be the bus that drives Jassara and Nasara, which is all connected to the satellites. It's connected to XLM. XLM is going to be the money of the people. XDC is going to be the money of the people. But these systems, these monetary systems, are very, very close in nature. You know what I mean? So yes. Some people say, well, there's not enough XRP to go around for the entire world. And you would be correct. You would be correct. But then you have to look at the whole picture. The whole picture says, hey, wait a minute. XLM is very similar to XRP. Couldn't they be tagged in to play a role? So there is another quantity that's there. XDC, same thing. Another one that nobody really talks about, which is not even part of the ISO family, which is a carbon copy identical to XRP, Casino Coin. Casino Coin is another one. Works exactly the same way, runs on the interoperable ledger, which is the most advanced blockchain technology in the world. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you and I had a very deep conversation yesterday in regards to, you know, and I think we see eye to eye on practically all of it. Have you been studying it all, the Jassara Nasara movement, and have you heard
a little?
Anomalies?
A little. Let's see. I don't think I'm as hard Nasara Jassara as you, in the sense that, you know, that everything that's listed out and enumerated, or, you know, that's laid out in that plan is actually what's going to transpire. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that, you know, when you look at the system that we're in now, we are in a debt-based asset system, right? Everything, right. So money is debt. You know, if I could use a 1984 term, freedom is slavery. All right. So, or slave. Yeah. So, we are in a debt-based system. Well, you cannot, when we come into a system where assets are going to be backed by gold. You know, the fiat money isn't necessarily going to be fiat from the standpoint that it's that it's artificially created out of thin air. It is actually going to be backed by precious metals, gold, silver, what have you. You're going to need a system that's going to do that, and that's what the distributed ledger technology with XRP and XLM, Algorand, IOTA, all the ISO tokens. That's the foundation of the system that's going to come through and do all that. And let me take a step back here for a second, because I wanted to say something. I heard DAI, Digital Asset Investor, say this one time, and it really struck a chord with me. He said he had heard someplace along the line that XRP was created to avert World War III. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty profound. And I tend to agree with that. But let me bring my point home here. Talking about the debt. If you get a wound, if you have a let's say that you have to have surgery on a limb or something, and you have an infection in there, you have to get in there and you have to clean out all the infection before you can't sew somebody up while they still have infection in their body. You have to scrape on and get all that crap out so that the person can heal properly. Okay. Well, the debt is that infection. You cannot bring debt into a system where debt isn't going to be created as money. So from that perspective, I believe there will be something akin to a debt jubilee. But again, how that manifests, I don't know. So, but the debt jubilee is the Nasara Jassara thing. So I don't know what that's going to ultimately look like. But I do believe conceptually in the Nasara Jassara, a lot of the Nasara Jassara stuff, I just don't know if it's actually going to be labeled as Nasara Jasara. Maybe that's something that's just for the people to, to kind of chew on, making it, easy for us to, to read it and understand it. I don't know. I don't know. The one thing that I have learned, brother, is I never really put myself into a box. I say what I believe is going to happen, but I never say that this is absolutely going to happen, because I have said that this is going to happen. I've said a variety of things were going to happen and they didn't. And I had a tremendous amount of egg on my face.
Sure.
And I've learned not to do that. And that includes dates and exact events and all this other stuff. I tend to stay away from that because I want to be credible. I think conceptually I have a really good idea of what's going to happen. But
I'll tell you, Ron, the reason why I'm sold on Jasara Nasara, whether you may or may not know, I have several rooms that are XRP, QFS, Jasara Nasara on Telegram. And then I have a Trump room. I have approximately 28,000 people following us just on that platform alone. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was sold, first of all, 3 years ago, I realized that there's two players on the field. It's the Klaus Schwab crowd with, George Soros and Bill Gates and all those guys who want the global reset. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, there's somebody else on the field. And as I started to go down that rabbit hole and recognized who that other opponent on that field was, it was undoubtedly that it was Jasara Nasara. Now, fast forward into the future a little bit, I realized how difficult it is to buy these assets. And my wife is incredibly intelligent. And I said, the average Joe Blow, like myself, and potentially maybe even yourself, you might be a little more intelligent than me when it comes to computers. I don't know. But I will tell you that when I looked at her and I said, the average Joe Jane is not going to be able to buy assets. It was completely, deliberately, intentionally designed so that it's confusing for the average person so that they walk away because they don't want you and me to become wealthy. So I said, we got to put together a room so that we can, everybody's got a little piece of the puzzle, like I said on Nino. And when you start to put the pieces of the puzzle, you have one piece, I got one piece, the other one's got another piece. Next thing you know, we know how to do this because we got collectively, 90,000 IQ in the room regarding digital assets when we put what we know together cohesively in one centralized location. And that happened. And people are able to buy their assets. And so we're having tremendous success in that respect. People are helping other people free of charge, walking them through the process, what have you. Then you fast forward a little more, and we got people coming into the room saying, hey, my student loan was forgiven. Not one, not two, but several dozen at this point. Student loans with documentation. Okay. A friend of mine, Dexter, calls me about 2.5 months ago. He says, Mel, you're right. I said, right about what? I said, I've been right about a lot of stuff. Right. Not cockingly, but I'm a little cocky. Right. And he said,
I have two.
Two of my friends just called me and said that they had their house mortgage, their home mortgages forgiven. And the next thing out of my mouth was, can we get them on a show? I said, that's the problem. He says, they don't want to come on camera. So this is what I'm dealing with. I have a friend of mine, Ben, who is Australian, who lives in the United Kingdom, who I've done a few podcasts with. Okay. His friends have just received the Q phone, which is talked about in the Jasara and Nasara documents. Also, when you go into Jasara and Nasara 2.0, 3.0, it starts talking about the extraterrestrials, the med beds, the free energy technology, all of it. So we don't just give you Jasara and Nasara 1.0. It's a website that lives inside our website called QFS2020.com. And it is the holy grail. If you want a black belt, on Jasara and Nasara, I give you QFS2020.com. Or if you forget that, just go to our website, QFS1776.com. Okay. And then you got everything there. So that's happening. So you cannot literally dismiss all of this stuff and say it doesn't exist, because we have, at least on car loans and student loans, we have documentation. This has already happened in our room. Okay.
Sure. Oh, and let me clarify. I don't just disregard anything anymore. There's a lot of things that I red pilled in 2000. I really don't remember exactly when I red pilled. I want to say it was either 2002 or 2003, and it was, it's surrounded the events of September 11. I saw something and I was like, my eyes came out of my head, my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks because I was scared and all of this stuff. But what it did was it took me out, and I was able to. I've been a devourer of information about that and other, call it conspiracy stuff, for years. But even then, there were certain things that I just couldn't really wrap my head around. The lizard people that Ike talked about, and the ufology, a lot of the UFO stuff, I never really could wrap my head around that. But at the same time, even as wild and crazy as some of that stuff sounded, I never, and my reluctance to believe it, I still never just disregarded it. It's like I'm gonna keep an open mind to this because I don't know. We don't know what we don't know, and certainly there are certainly things that are propagated out there that we know they're great. Is somebody pushing this out to make us think that something is one way when it's really not? I'd like, for example, I'm not a flat Earth guy. I'm just not a flat Earth guy, and I don't have anything against people who are, but I'm not a flat Earth guy, and I kind of tend to think that flat Earth is I've seen some of the arguments about flat Earth, and they make some really interesting points. I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if I could do that. But I know pilots. I know guys who are pilots who've flown all over the world, and North and South America. And there's no way that if the Earth was flat, that they could go along those trade routes or those flight paths if the Earth wasn't round. Right? It's just not possible. So, and these guys are actually guys who've done those. So, anyway, I tend to think that there are some theories out there that are postulated and propagated to make people like us sound crazy. But then there's some things that are actually truth, and the best place to hide the truth is right between two lies, and the best place to hide a lie is right between two truths. So, who was it? William Casey. I think it was William Casey who said this in it was Ronald Reagan's first cabinet meeting in 1981. He said, we'll know, Mr. President, we'll know that our disinformation campaigns are working great when everything the American people believe is false. This is 1981. Recently I was made aware. I was basically instructed, and I'll say it by this came from the community of a 3-star general that everybody knows and loves, that starts with the first initial F. Okay, if you know what we're talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. And because I run in those circles still, and I was told to familiarize myself with everything that I could about 5th generation warfare. And 5th generation warfare basically floods there's so much information flooded into the marketplace of ideas that you get what's called the analysis paralysis. You don't know which way is up, which way is down. You don't know what's right, what's wrong. You just don't know. And when you don't know, then it literally causes you to freeze up so that you can't act. Right? So what I tend to do is I kind of tend to step back from information a little bit. I try to take a little bit more of a like I said, that 80,000-foot perspective, and look at the things that I can absolutely ascertain for certain. I mean, that same general is out there talking about how Team 17 is just utter bullshit. Yet at the same time, he's reciting the pledge or he's reciting the oath and saying the where we one all go. Right. He's saying that, right? It's like, to me, that's just it's absolutely contradictory information. How can you say?
Well, how many times have you heard Trump say 17?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, and I heard a very interesting thing the other day, and I don't even remember where I heard this, but it was I thought it was very interesting. He talked about 1917 a lot, right? He talked about 1917, and that was in relation to the C-19 stuff. And a lot of people assumed that what he was talking about was the Spanish flu, but I don't think that's what he was talking about. This gentleman, or this person that I listened to, and again I can't remember what it was, but he said that what they were referring to was October Revolution in Russia, and that wasn't, and make no mistake, the Russian Revolution in 1917 was not a revolution of Russian people rising up against the Tsars. It was an invasion of Bolshevik communists into Russia to take over Russia. And that's exactly what we are experiencing right now in the United States. And this is a little bit of an interesting factoid that people, a lot of times people said, I've heard this a lot from the left to say, oh, well, Trump is just like Hitler. Well, you know what? If you really take a close analysis of what Adolf Hitler was fighting, Adolf Hitler, there's a lot of stuff that's this suspect information that's coming out of Germany. I'm not, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but what Adolf Hitler was fighting in Germany was not, he wasn't trying to take over the world. What he was trying to do, what I believe he was trying to do, is he was trying to protect Germany and Western Europe from the Bolshevik invasion that happened in Russia. He was fighting communism. So, and that's exactly, so when they say that Trump is just like Hitler, in many ways, they probably got an analogy correct that they didn't really understand that they did, and not for, and for a reason that they really don't understand
why.
Why. So.
Exactly correct. But you and I are very capable of very critical thinking, and yes. we look at things from 97 different angles before we come to any kind of the terminology of what it is or what it isn't.
Correct.
And I've been at this XRP game, for example, for 6 years. I was a Bitcoin guy, not hardcore, but we had a couple of Bitcoins. We had a few, okay, and then we sold it during that 2017 bull market. And when my wife came to me, said, you got to get into XRP. Don't worry about the banks. If the banks get rich, you get rich. Right. That made a lot of sense to me. And when I started to really delve into the fact that, Bitcoin doesn't do nothing, and, you can make all the arguments you want. Or it's a hedge against inflation. Wrong. That's not a functionality. Or it's scarce. That's not a functionality. Okay. It moves very slow. It costs a lot of money. It's antiquated technology. We're talking Model T Ford. When we came out with the big Motorola brick cell phone, correct? Yep. We realized, okay, it's possible. We can make a cell phone. But then what happened to the motor? Do you see anybody using the Motorola brick phone anymore?
Well, I see a few Motorola brick phones out there that are that's what they are in theory, or and that's what they look like. But on the inside, all the technology is this technology. You know what I mean? It's like a phone, but it's a 5G compatible phone, but it's just in the body of one of those old brick phones, so you can actually.
Oh, that's a different situation. That's probably like a 007 that works for
you get it,
four-letter agency.
But no, I don't see any Model T car. I don't see any Model T Ford driving around either.
Exactly, bingo. And you won't see Bitcoin either. I do tend
to think that Bitcoin will survive. I think Bitcoin will have an intrinsic value because it was kind of the first one out there. I do believe that it will be worth something, but there's two. I don't think but it's not the one. It's not what the Bitcoin maxis believe is going to be the savior of humanity. I mean, they are drinking Kool-Aid that is just
supercharged Kool-Aid.
Oh, crazy. Because I love how DAI refers to us as like, we are the adults in the room and they're just freaking children, and they think
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's already been proven fact that the XRP people are the smartest people when it comes to digital assets. There's not even an argument. Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. you cannot just save something just because it was the first one. Like you said, you don't see anybody driving the Model T Ford anymore. And I don't believe anybody will use because it's too slow. 2 transactions per minute doesn't cut it. Brad Kimes moved 1.5 Bitcoins, cost him 4,500 or $5,000, and he had to wait 5-6 hours. He made 3 videos about this. Brad Kimes, Digital Perspectives. I follow both.
Yeah, no, I know who Brad is. I didn't see when this happened. When did this happen?
About 2.5, 3 months ago, he made 3 videos, almost back to back, and he told that story 3 times. As a matter of fact, I had what's his name, Crypto Hulk, on my show.
Oh, how is he? I always liked him.
He's a character. He really is.
Yeah, he is.
I like everybody. There's a few people that I won't mention I do not like because these people want to become rich at all costs. See, I'm a different kind of cat. I want everybody to have.
I agree.
I don't want the haves and the have-nots. I don't get any pleasure driving my Lamborghini down the road with my beautiful trophy wife or trophy girlfriend, whatever, and under the bridge there's America living out of a garbage can, sleeping on some mattresses that somebody else threw away. I don't get any pleasure.
Amen to that.
Okay, but there are a few, without mentioning those few, because most of the XRP Army 1.0, and I don't call them that to condescend on them. I call them that because they were the original army. Okay, and I've learned a lot from them. And here's and I feel sorry for them in a way, and you can, because I like to speculate. I'm saying, okay, because I know that Brad Kimes, for example, is a classic example. He made not 1, not 2, but 3 videos on Nasara Jassara. Very professional. Did. Yeah, he did. Very professional. Because he's very polished. You know what I mean? He's got a way with his words. He's a lot. I'm rough around the edges. He's very polished. He's like completely the opposite about me. He's everybody's got their own style. I got mine. Some people like me, some people like him. It doesn't matter. You like Cadillacs, I like Lincolns. You know the story, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is that he's made 3 videos and then completely backed away from that subject altogether. Has never made a video since. This is like 3 years ago. No, I'm sorry.
It's about a year ago. Jekyll Island 2.0. A year ago. Ripple, XRP, Nasara Jassara, will the G20 and IMF. Okay, yeah.
He's made and he completely backed away from that. You see, they're all painting this narrative of the global reset, and they built massive audiences, right? Preaching that song. So now they know that if they back away from that song and say, oh, Ron and Mel are right, Jassara Nasara is real, for example, and they start coming over our side of the fence, they're going to lose some audiences, as far as I'm concerned. I agree with that, guys. You will lose some of your audience, but you're going to gain, I expect, 5 times, 6 times more on the back end going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months into the future, because in 4, 5, 6 months, 8 months, it's going to be so undeniable. Anywhere you look on the wall, it's going to be Jassara Nasara everywhere. You won't be able to make a left or a right. It's going to be undeniable. It's there. And when that time comes, I'm sorry to say, but everybody's going to come running to me and Kabbalah Guru and Gilad Jed and so on, because we're preaching the song that we believe is the most accurate one out there. And because of the fact that we have documentation, not conversation, documentation. People saying, hey, my college loan went away. I got a person right now in my room, Ron, in my room. 2 days ago, we're going back and forth. He said, I haven't paid my mortgage. I think my mortgage is done. I said, look, if you go into September, October, November, and they give you some kind of documentation that's saying you no longer have a mortgage, I want you to do a show. So I may get my wish after all. I may get my first person on my show that says, yeah, here's my documentation. My mortgage went away. And they're in my room, my Telegram group.
The challenge that I have with some of the content creators is that I kind of feel that they speak way too glowing of they use the terminology and the Great Reset. They use the WEF's terminology way too glowingly. The 4th Industrial Revolution and this is sustainable, and I do not believe that I do not believe in climate change. I mean, that is just an absolute utter
It's bullshit.
bullshit that you sold to the people to make them think that we have to do this stuff with carbon. It's like, dude, do you not understand that the reason that you don't have carbon, or when you reduce the carbon emissions in the atmosphere, what you get is you get lower crop yields. You literally are taking food out of your mouth by doing that. Moreover, this whole scam of the electric cars, what you're doing is you are accelerating the deterioration of our electric grid, because now the electric grid, it used to be it only had to work at in the daytime when everybody was awake. Now it has to work at nighttime because you have a whole boatload of cars that are draining the grid at night. So you're putting even more pressure on the electrical grid, more stress on the electrical grid, without any. But at the same time, removing a nuclear power plants, removing coal-fired power plants. You've got things like the Hoover Dam that are where the water levels are critically low. Now, and in fairness, the Hoover Dam, I actually looked up the other day how many households what sort of a population that Hoover Dam, when it was running at its peak, actually services, and it was only like 1.5 million people. I'm like, that's nothing. I was expecting it to be like 30 million or 40 million people, and when I saw that it was only like 1.5 million people, I'm like, well, that's actually not a really high number as compared to what I thought it was going to be. And exactly. I'm not suggesting that that we need to not have Hoover Dam producing electricity. That's not what I'm saying. But when Hoover Dam is operating at its peak function, it's one more grain of sand on the beach. Then you need all the grains of sand on the beach to have the beach. You start taking sand away from the beach, and you're not going to have a beach anymore. And so I think it's very important that we maintain Hoover Dam. And not to get into too conspiratorial, are you familiar with Dane Wigington?
No, I'm not.
Dane Wigington has Geoengineering Watch, and he talks about manipulating chemtrails and geoengineering from manipulate weather manipulation. And I don't even know what it was that I stumbled on one of his videos about 3 months ago, and he had interviewed a general, an Air Force general, about weather modification, and they talked about what the Middle East went through right before we invaded, and they said that there was a 1,000 year, like just random 1,000 year, once in a 1,000 year drought that occurred in the Middle East right before 2003. What are the odds of that right before we were going to invade? Okay. Now, you take that into consideration. I saw a news article here I'm in Southern California, and I saw a news article about the weather pattern in California. Now, in California, we have we sometimes have a weather pattern called El Nino, and then we sometimes have a weather pattern called La Nina. El Nino is typically a much wetter season where we have a lot more rain, a lot more storms. La Nina is a typically dry, an atypically dry season. And they said that we are on the cusp of having a an extremely rare third consecutive year of La Nina in California. I'm calling major bullshit.
Of course.
Major bullshit, because when you look at the harvests in the United States across the board, the United States is not getting, the United States as a whole is in drought conditions. If you look at the harvests and the farms right now, they're getting destroyed because the harvest that there wasn't enough water fall to irrigate or water the crops, and the crops are they're either burned or they're no good. Well, we're not going to see the ramifications of that until next year, right? I mean, the crops and stuff that we have in terms of just overall agriculture, the primary agriculture, at least from like the wheat and the grains and the rice and corn and stuff like that, we see the general benefits of that it's a year down the road. So 1 year from now, we're going to have some really, really serious food shortages as a result of not having enough rice, corn, and wheat. But this is all manufactured.
Of course it is.
They have been pushing us and getting us into this area right now. For everything is coming to a head right now. You're having
and these are the biggest hypocrites. They have jet aircraft. They have the biggest homes in the world. They have helicopter jet craft. They have big yachts. They are the biggest carbon footprint in the world, but yet they want us to live in a 300-foot apartment.
Well, yeah, because what they want us to do is they keep selling us that it's that we're the problem. Yeah. We are the problem when we're not the problem. Right. But if you look at the climate agenda, or let me even take a step back, and it's not just specifically the climate agenda, but let's just say let's call it the environmentalism agenda, because the climate falls under that criteria, right? Anything that's environmental activism, pets or I remember they were building a big reservoir out here where I live several, probably 15, 20 years ago. And that project was halted and went through so many loops because of this little mouse or little rat that was that was out here. Oh, well, this is going to endanger this K-rat. Well, okay, so because we're going to endanger the K-rat, or it possibly could go into extinction, so we're going to have to discontinue building a reservoir, which we absolutely need for the population growth that's coming. So they're using environmentalism as a mechanism to halt, the furtherance of society. We can't build infrastructure because we might endanger this rodent. Okay, well we can't. So what? We humans can't live. Well, and then simultaneously, they're telling us that we are the problem. That overpopulation is what's kind of. I thought it was absolutely wonderful that the Guidestones blew up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was fantastic.
I thought it was fantastic, and I've known about the Guidestones for years and years and years. For many years, nobody knew who even funded that project, and then it came out that it was Ted Turner from CNN. Correct. But getting back to your carbon and the global warming or the climate change changes every minute. It's ridiculous. But if there was a carbon problem, let's just say there was, you can offset it very easily. It's called hemp. One word, hemp. Yeah. Okay, you can grow hemp and it will suck the carbon out of the air so fast it will make your head spin.
Do you know who the big the big money that was really put against the hemp and the marijuana industry 100 years ago, 150 years ago? Do you know who that was?
I'm sure I do, but remind me. Tell me, please.
It was the newspaper people, specifically Hearst.
Paper, yes, because the paper could be made from hemp. Correct.
Right, because of the paper. So they went full throttle attack on the marijuana industry because hemp could be used as a much cheaper alternative when, William Randolph Hearst owned just a ton of forests that they were cutting the forest down to make the paper for his newspapers. And that would have literally put him that would have sucked all of his money. I mean, he was making a killing in that operation. So he lobbied against it. Yeah. Basically. He lobbied against it. There's a really interesting documentary out there. You want to go find it. I think you could find it on BitChute. It's called the truth behind marijuana, or the truth behind the truth against marijuana, or something like that. But, or the truth about the war on marijuana. I'm getting it wrong, but you can find it.
Yeah. I will tell you that the solutions to the problems are so simple to fix. So simple to fix. Like hemp fixes so many problems. It's a hell of a lot better than cotton. If you have hemp shirts, they last a lot longer. Your first dungarees are made from hemp. Your first flag was made from hemp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your constitution, your original constitution was signed on hemp paper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can make cinder blocks that are 95% lighter than traditional cinder blocks for building homes. And get this, they're bulletproof. You could shoot it with a 50 caliber projectile; it will not penetrate.
I believe that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that hemp has been, is proven that it could be used for, but these are all technologies that are going to get unleashed and released into the public consciousness, and when they are, and when we realize that, what energy is not, energy controls us. We don't control energy.
Absolutely.
But there's more than enough energy out there for us to consume. And I think, what is happening right now. Let's get into a little bit of, what Team 17 talks about in terms of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer that the pain that is about to be inflicted on the people of the United States is not exclusively limited to the evil people. It's going to be the regular people too. And in truth, the regular people need to feel the pain so that they will know, what does it say? How do you know what the light is until you can't really know what light is until you've been in the dark. And we are going to have some really, really dark times. You're
not going to get an argument out of me, Ron. I've been following the 17th letter in the alphabet, which we're not allowed to mention here because somebody believes they own the language. Not for long. The language you'll be owning is Guantanamo Bay. Believe me. And we, the people, will make sure of that. But when Trump came out and made that famous speech, and we're giving the power back to you, the people, he's saying, we're going to give you Jassara Nassara. Under Jassara Nassara, we're going to release all the free energy technology. We're going to release hemp. We're going to release everything. Everything.
I want to give people a something to look at. I want you to go back. I want you to watch the inauguration, and you watch when Trump says that. When Trump said that, something happened that I
soldiers are turning around. They're moving in unfashionable ways.
No. It was LT from And We Know who alerted me to this. He said that when Trump made that initial part of the speech on the inauguration day, the military was right behind him. And as soon as he made those comments, then they very respectfully and orderly left. But when he was talking about we are transitioning power back from these, basically call it deep state assets and giving it back to the people of the United States, the military was behind him. And I was like, wow, I've seen many inaugurations in my day, and I had never once seen the military actually stand behind a president when he was being inaugurated or when he was initially giving a speech. I never really put it together at that time, but when it was made aware to me that could be a possibility, and this is actually fairly recently. It was probably, I think LT mentioned this about maybe 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago.
Where does he live, by the chance? Not to get off subject. Where does he live? What country? I know he's not in the U.S.
I don't know exactly where he is. I want to say I think he's in the Far East somewhere, but I don't know exactly. I don't know.
Would it be possible?
I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
But I don't believe he's in the United States. Although he speaks a lot about Florida. Yes. He speaks a lot about Florida. So I think he has children in Florida, but right. I don't think he's in the United States specifically.
No. Now let me ask you a question. Do you remember that famous day when Trump comes down the escalator? He's going to announce he's running for president. Melania is about maybe 6 or 7 or 8 feet in front of him, wearing that gorgeous white dress, which that's meaningful as well. And there's a sign behind them. Do you remember what that sign said?
I don't actually.
On the wall.
I don't remember that.
It said currency exchange. Go back and watch the video.
I will.
Yeah. Currency exchange. This man, I get chills. I get emotional about this. Mm-hmm. This man is working on Jassara Nassara from day one.
Well, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who seem to think that Junior's still alive, and that this is part of the plan, that Junior is also involved in a lot of this plan. I don't know if he is or not. I know there's a lot of interesting factoids out there about George Magazine. A lot of things that are put out there. There's a lot of stuff that just very synchronistic, unexplainable, and certainly could be explained by him being alive. I'm not going to come out one way or another. If you're going to ask me what I believe, I'm probably going to lean towards he probably is alive, but I'm not going to. That's not a hill that I'm going to die on. I don't know.
I really got on the radar recently when I interviewed none other than David Straight. I'm sure you know who he is.
Who?
David Straight.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a guy that teaches people how to get off the grid and become sovereign and all of that. Okay. He's a big deal. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be trying to get him connected with Nino Rodriguez so that we can get him on his show as well and get him the exposure that he deserves. And my very first question, I basically did this. I got real close. I said, so tell me, is JFK still alive? And I smiled. And there was a 17-second pause. It seemed like forever. Right? And then he said, you're not supposed to ask that question. People were sitting on their couches. They're telling me this after the fact. They said, I squeezed my husband's hand so tight. He goes, honey, we're going for a ride. This is going to be a good one. And I'll tell you what, we went back and saw videos of him actually confirming that, yes, he is alive. And David Straight does not come off to me as a bullshitter, number one. That
you remember the video interview where they asked RFK if JFK Jr. was alive, and if he was, to touch his nose. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and then he touched his nose.
Yes.
Yeah. That was, that's anecdotal. That's not anything that's verifiable. You can't say, oh, well, this is concrete evidence. No, but you know what? And it's, in our community, I look for anything that we have that can be kind of a fun little escape. And that's a fun thing to contemplate. Whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, what we need to be doing is we need to be there's a gentleman out there who I've become very fond of. His name is Brian McClanahan, Brion, Brian McClanahan, and he has the I forgot what it is, but he has a YouTube channel. Actually, let me look this up because I'm very so his YouTube channel is Brian McClanahan, and it's the Brian McClanahan Show. So, and then his website is some sort of an academy, but he teaches like real history. Is really, really good. And his shtick is, or his moniker is like, think locally and act locally. And that's what we need to be focusing on. I tend to think that people in the United States put way too much emphasis on federal elections. You may or may not know this, but I facilitate a class where we teach the Constitution. We go through the Constitution every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at Mr.-Constitution.com. We go through the Constitution. We start going through the preamble, and then we go through all of the amendments, and then when we get done, we take a week off or 2 weeks off, and then we start again, and we just do it all the time. And the one thing that we get more than anything from people who actually are in the class, they come to class live, they get angry when they realize how bad things are and how far away we are from the Constitution. And you know what? And I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I just want to. Okay, who's the constituency of the House of Representatives?